And what happened was this was it's been sitting around at Akron Makerspace for a good while. It was a gift from Element 14. I'm like, come up with something. It has a terrible name. Um, it is the I.MX 6 Quad Sabre Light. So we'll just call it Sabre Light because that's much easier to say. And this is basically a development board. And as you can see, it's not like the whole point is it's small enough. It's only slightly larger than a business card. The only tall thing on it is the actual NIC and two real USB 2.0 points. It has SATA data. Its SATA power thing requires an interesting dongle, but I'm pretty sure I can make that work. So obviously, since it's from Freescale, it has a Freescale chip that's basically a Cortex A9. Long and short of this, it runs at 1 gig. It has 4 cores, but they're not symmetrical cores. And in fact, each one is meant to do something different on purpose. Its goal is visual, and so as a result, it has a lot of the things you would expect from a Raspberry Pi. So, for example, you can connect a touch screen. It expects to do that. It actually has not one. So it has both an SD card and micro SD card slot there. Hi, how do you do? The kind where you have to squeeze it in. Full HDMI, although that's where some of the weirdness comes in, and plenty of things to work with. Beautiful, eh? And not only that, like I say, it runs at about 1 gigahertz. It says it's gigahertz, but it can vary. It has a full gig of DDR3 RAM. This is not just a baby. And as a result, doing development for it, you can just sit there and do it right on it. You don't even have to think about, oh, is it going to transport? Do I have to do cross dev? If you don't mind the time, it'll work. And so for any kind of Python project, things like that, oh, it's wonderful. And in fact, it was designed, one of its first big uses was as the head unit for an entertainment system on a Jeep Wrangler. So this is definitely made for the question is not, does it run Crysis, but does it run my tunes while I'm supposed to be driving? And that it does, yes. It has really good hardware codecs for all sorts of video and audio pieces. Lovely stuff. However, it is from 2012. Normally, this is not a big deal, except that because of this size that we're looking at, we are obviously talking about something with some kind of firmware to get it going. And because it's an ARM chip, it is not going to be running, say, Grub or EFI. It is definitely running U-boot. And that's really where we're going. And that's what I wound up learning more about than I did about the board itself. So let's take this back a little bit. And by a little bit, I mean the 50s. So we're familiar, all of us who are really into the history of computers, and that kind of comes for a lot of us. But one of the big things is the definition of what's known as von Neumann architecture. Johnny von Neumann, please don't ask me to remember his real name in Hungarian because I don't know that he did either. But he was originally from Hungary. He's one of the brightest mathematicians of the 20th century. His draft paper about computers became the definition of what computer architecture would be all the way into the modern era. And the centerpiece of that is that both data and instructions could be kept in the same storage, that you had a central processing unit. A lot of the things that we think of that really go back to sort of what Babbage had defined in the concepts of the store, the mill, and all these pieces that we are familiar with today when we look at our desktop machines. Now, you say, well, of course I know that. Now what is the contrast is, of course, Harvard architecture, where data and instructions are kept separately. And in fact, often instructions tend to be hard-coded so that data just kind of shows up. The idea this is much more central for calculators and the pieces that go with that. But in time, there are two major advances that have led toward merging this kind of thinking, or if not merging it, at least allowing for the same kind of training, no matter where the storage is. Because we're really just talking, because most of the difference Now that we have parallel processing on very small levels and even non-parallel but threaded processing going on in various ways. The first part is, of course, the idea of getting things to be removed from the hardware, the having layers upon layers of abstraction. Now, of course, we're unfortunately already familiar with this, going back to, say, the wonders of, you can all start booing right now, Windows NT in 2000 with the hardware extraction layer, or HAL. I'm sorry, Dave, I'm not going to let you without paying for a new license. What we know about it, though, is it did solve a problem for them, which is, how do you know when it's time for new billability? And what is that? And their real reference isn't even always like, oh, you could add so many peripherals and then we'll do it. The usual change that leads to the hardware extraction layer being fixed is the motherboard. Because once you could take a new CPU and put it in on a motherboard, and all it's really going to do is change some speeds. And especially if, like, oh, you'd bought it as a Celeron, now it's a Pentium 3. 20 years ago, that was a common thing to happen. And that would give you maybe, you could use slightly faster RAM, you'd have, which made a big deal when that slightly faster was, an extra 33%. But changing a motherboard, that's a dramatic move. You're going to have a different Northbridge and Southbridge, things that don't really exist anymore, but you're definitely going to have different video interfaces, therefore probably a different video card, different types of RAM, different power structures. So it was a reasonable thing to say, this is a new machine. It's a way of solving the paradox and be billable. Now, of course, in our Linux world, we have hardware abstraction layers, but we don't stress about them as a billable moment so much as we think about them as, what do I need to have for kernel modules? It doesn't mean that I couldn't take that same card and move it, that same storage and move it over to another machine. It'll still boot up. It'll just go looking for different pieces when it goes through and detects what's on. This sounds like, again, this sounds very familiar to us. However, we're now talking about a different layer of things. The computers we know, the desktops, the laptops, and even the notebooks that we've known in the past, are fading in how much regular people use them. We don't like to admit it, but it's been good for us because it means, we can get their used equipment and it doesn't matter. But it's also meaning that some of the stuff we've taken for granted is going to become more expensive in the future because it won't be as high demand. Most people, when they want to have some kind of internet experience, they're happy with a phone. And yes, you can use the phone as your development tool, but it's not a computer. And what does that mean for a computer? Well, this is where this kind of thing comes in, is that we're really going to be developing things for embedded devices. This is not, again, I keep saying it's not, but it is. We've had some form of RTOS level Linux, and we've even had presentations about free RTOS and various differences going back a good 20 years. What this has meant is, though, the shift in what is that level of abstraction. I mean, this has been important going back to the days of Fortran, when you've got people who are mathematicians and don't really want to know what the computer's doing. They just want to turn their formulas into something the computer can process so they can stay on that high level. But for all of us who live for finding out, what are those Rococo moments? What are those things that don't really come together? The administrative things that we find fundamental. That means we want to get into what is the difference in that abstraction. We get so used to thinking about, say, C. We forget that it's a high-level language because it lets us use, say, any kind of pieces of assembly. We can just toss that into the make file. We can get used to, okay, you're just going to do a bit shift. But it's still an abstracted bit shift. It's not actually, you don't actually have to know, is this a little endian or big endian machine? You just write the code. And that's a good thing, because it allows you to have that high level and low level within the same code. And of course, most of us are trying to develop for other stuff. We're working in Python. We're working with things that are such large scales of data that the speed of it doesn't matter, because you're going to feed it to another set of machinery. You'd rather have a good theory and formula and then be able to check what parts of that need to iterate correctly. But it also means we're going to be dealing more and more with tiny pieces having that smaller part of getting to the first boot of the OS so that the OSs look the same and the experience looks the same. Now I'm starting to sound like Alvin Toffler. You're going to have a new kind of experience. But you are. I mean, when you think about a device like this, it plugs in all your normal stuff, but then why do I need these old school serial dongles? Oh, for debugging. Oh, yeah, that. And in this case, that has become the problem. This comes with some version of U-boot. If you're not familiar, um, we're all familiar, of course, with the, say, in the old days, the first version of some kind of abstraction to get Linux started was the old school Lila, the Linux loader. Now, Linux loader required that you compile didn't take long, but still it was a compiled boot setup. You could not change things on the fly. You couldn't write new things. Later on came the Grand Unified Bootloader, Grub, and its later iteration, Grub version 2, 2.0 is actually surprisingly different. I remember getting so comfortable in Grub.97 that I was able to pick the 14 colors that I wanted that I would be allowed for a splash screen and use them to my advantage for making things render just right on a screen. It just sounds crazy now. No one even looks at this background screen on a splash screen if they let it happen at all. But the biggest thing with Grub was that one, it allowed for a much stronger level of modularity, and two, you could write boot up statements on the fly. It has a full syntax, and we're very familiar. But it's still tailored towards the machines that would run it. In other words, x86 machines, 32-bit days, and still into 64-bit. But with the change towards EFI and UEFI, it's now a layer on top of that layer. When we're dealing with machines on this scale, we're still dealing with things that, yeah, the OS can be, any size you want that you fit into an SD card. So that's no problem. But getting to that point, getting to basically location 0 for startup is still a very strange process without something like U-boot. U-boot has a syntax that's similar if you're familiar with Ash, the really skinny bash-like startup. So it has some syntax. You're allowed to set certain variables, but its big deal is that you can cross-compile for a lot of different chips to get things to boot. And this is actually where some of the pioneering stuff can happen. That's also meant for this board that I've been working with, just trying to get it to a point where it could run a version of Linux newer than 3.0 meant having to find and then install a version of U-boot that could address these things. This has turned out to be very tricky. I've been lucky. The device is supported. It has both the people from Freescale and then NXP who do still all sorts of development. There's an entire crew that do the documentation and firmware parts for this and have a huge wiki. And now their name is, it's a very strange name, like bouncing something. But problem is that while, unlike the usual problem that you get with some sort of obscure chip, where, I can't find any information, I don't know how it's documented, it's well documented. And all of it's out there without clear iteration points except dates. And so I am filtering through and finding out, okay, that's out of date. Wait, no, I got to take this. So it's become a research project, but not from paucity, but from fecundity. But what is the value of this to us as Linux people? Well, it means that as I start to learn this, and and I'm doing redocumentation with that, and I've got lovely notes, but obviously I haven't brought my laptop in. Oh God, it's freezing in the car. Anyway, it's here. You want to really read it, but is that getting that clear sense of this thing is running a version of U-boot that had branched from the main line out of Germany 3 years ago. So you have to actually back up to a version and then go forward. People had bricked them and then figured out how to unbrick them, and they've written that all down. So this is part of that kind of tradition. But it is, as a result, kind of left me with that feeling you used to get when you would do like a Gen 2 stage 1 build or something where you really had to learn what complexities were going to make you functional and give you what you wanted. And it's kind of, it's got the blood going in my veins. I've really been enjoying this. So I look forward to showing it running different OSs and doing a couple of things on different screens in a month or two. But what's been fascinating is seeing that this is another place where the open source world, I mean, all of this is available on GitHub. You can compile any versions, you can try different things, but you're still doing certain things by hand. You're still passing in like a couple of files to a card and then sneaker knitting the card over. You're dealing with problems like, okay, it thinks that the big SD card is 0 and the little SD card is 1, but unless it's got both of them there, it's going to do some weird boot order stuff that might not expect because it's not quite thinking right. And that's fixed in a later version that I can't quite get to. Da, 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 da. Oh, I know it's crazy talk, but it's also the kind of little bureaucratic pieces that make these into crime stories, make them into their own little detective novels. So that's what I've been enjoying, and I'm a dork. I'm completely enjoying this. It's left me to deal with problems such as, because of the serial ports, I'm like, okay, dig up an old serial to USB device. And some of them, no problem. And others, it's like, yeah, that chip, we don't really support it anymore in this. And even in Linux, it's kind of weird. What? How can that happen? The chip works. In fact, I've even been digging out equipment to do serial to TCP IP so that I don't have to hook it to one machine. I can just hook it to my network while I troubleshoot. That's also kind of fun. But so that's kind of where that is right now. Any questions that come out of it?
How are you getting the bootloader on the board itself?
You get the bootloader. So, like I say, regular SD cards.
Okay.
Sorry, this is like a Wii thing that that we used to get from Mac ones. But what you have to do is it can, and oh, I should mention this. It can boot either based on a FAT partition, not, I mean, like FAT32, yes, that's fine. But, or ext2. Now, obviously with ext2, it's a little more comfortable. You can actually set permissions, but it can deal with either one. But the problem is, I think this version may have some limitations when it came to actually booting from something that's larger than 4 gigabytes, which is the old U to X barrier. So UHSD versus XHSD. So like what we now, I mean, when you go to the store now, 16 gig is the smallest one you're going to find because you're doing it for a camera or a recording device. It's a completely different world. It comes with, and this does work, it on this this little, they're all the same, but on this 4 gig Kingston card here, it comes with something called TimeSys Linux, which is a bare bones Linux. It boots up, and then it runs a slideshow. It's about 5 or 6 slides. However, because of how the hardware expects to talk to DVI instead of HDMI, even if it's connected by HDMI, no, I'm not kidding. Some monitors, it'll run fine, and other monitors, it won't run at all. And it will actually say, do I detect a keyboard? Do I detect a mouse? And do I detect a monitor at these speeds? If it doesn't get all three, it just kind of fails out. It'll be running as an OS, but you're kind of stuck talking to it directly from the serial port, which is also kind of strange. But it does run. So right now I can boot it and show those pieces, but it's not particularly interesting because I can't from that even turn to the next stage of, okay, well, let's run a Python script. It doesn't really think that far. You're either running its startup script or disabling that and going really deep. But it can, I mean, like the people have versions of Ubuntu, Debian, Android, and even a couple of other more interesting versions that run directly on this and can fit into the smaller cards if necessary. So there's those pieces. Okay, so it is a, the processor's name is an I.MX 6 quad. also known as a hydrogen 6. It's an ARM chip. I believe it's based on the Cortex A9. Like I say, it's got these four. So like when you boot it up and you look at the quick, when it's for startup log, it'll show you each core speed, and it's like one will say 800, another 744, and then another one's like 50. You're like, what's going on? They're not all the same. No, because one's dealing with I/O, another one's dealing only with graphics, another one's only, and so it is specialized to that. It's just able to use regular RAM, and that kind of gets back to that old idea about, as we go through this future, we really don't care whether data and instructions are going to be separated. Now that we are able to use a tool like U-Boot to make any kind of boot up for basic machines, it can say, oh, I'm just going to get this from Slash and the other. Harvey, sorry, what's up?
Unmute.
You're muted.
You're muted.
There we go.
Any experience with any other boards?
Do I have experience? Yes, I have a lot of weird experience with boards. Obviously from, the Arduino side and all of that, lots of Raspberry Pis, but also the oldest setup that I dealt with, not in terms of the oldest chips. I mean, I've been playing actually with a couple of old 8048 chips recently. I shouldn't even get into that. But the oldest thing I did was in 2001 when I was on an embedded team. We were dealing with an MPC 555, which is not the same as an old school 555 timer chip, but it's a 32-bit processor. They were building this for a grain analyzer that went onto a machine. So I've been dealing with cross-compiling and build maintenance and make files going back to that time. So for me, this is fun. But yeah, I keep picking up boards here and there and then learning what little things I can do and try to find fun little projects for them. In fact, one more is, of course, we all know as of last week, the Raspberry Pi Pico is available, and I got to Micro Center in time and got mine for $2, and then put the headers on it just today. Ladies and gentlemen, the 2040 chip, 133 megahertz, and lots of people complaining about it online, so I'm looking forward to finding out what I can do.
33 meg.
Yes. 133 megahertz, 264 kilobytes of RAM. It can do a variety of bits and pieces. But people have been complaining because as a result, it doesn't have any Wi-Fi features, I guess. Yeah, so there's that. You're still gonna have to hook up something else. But that's why I want to find out more about its limits. I didn't even have anything to present yet because I haven't had a chance to power this on. I mean, the good thing is it's USB micro connection. So, but I believe it's only 3.3 volt tolerant for its inputs. Yeah. But I think. Yes, it does do. It does do SPI and I2C, I believe. In fact, it might even do I2S. I think it might. I know it has some 12-bit ADCs, so it's not enough to do audio pickup, but it's enough to do a lot of high sensitivity for other features.
I was thinking about designing a 3D printer controller board around one of those. Instead of I use Arduino Duo right now.
Oh, fun to do it.
Yeah,
That's nice.
I got a couple of Duos that have hats on them or whatever they're shields.
Yeah. So yeah, no, that's the kind of stuff I've been playing with, and yeah, that's nice sport.
That's pretty cool. So the Pico is $2, I guess.
They're $2 right now at Micro Center. They're normally $4. You have to go in person. Oh dear. But it's $4. Yes, you got to go get your own headers. I already got a box of those. It was just like taking the time to solder, which of course took me like
standard
10 minutes.
Like,
Yeah.
what, you don't have headers?
No, they actually sell now. If you go to Micro Center, they sell Pi 0Ws with the headers already on, which is kind of like, yeah, it's like that's cheaper than my time to solder. I kind of take it. Yeah, let a machine do the trick. It kids these days with the machines and the bowling and the rocket roll. But yeah, so yeah.
That's pretty neat. So
Yeah. Sorry, you go.
So these are running at 1 gigahertz?
Yeah, roughly 1 gigahertz. I think when it first starts up, it gives you 800 megahertz. Oh, I didn't even mention, it has this lovely cover on the, it has obviously a JTAG for using a Sabre or so you can actually do real debugging. But it even has this nice little cover on it, so you don't break the pins. That's pretty pimp. That's really, like that's when you know it's classy. It's like when they spray the air because you found it.
Is it a NIC on it?
Oh yeah,
What's
full
the
full gigabit.
full gigabit? Okay.
Yeah.
Hardware or is it a USB emulation?
I think it's a full hardware. I actually have to look that
I know
up.
the Pi 3 was.
Yes, it's all through USB.
And then
Whereas
4.
this is, well, because I think they're what's funny too is you could even have address. Oh, I forgot to mention one of the other things. So with U-Boot, it learns to think. It's already ready to think about. Do you need to boot me from I2C? Do you need to boot from NFS boot of all wonderful things? And of course, it can do TFTP. So it doesn't know how to talk to a Pixie server. It doesn't know how. So it's got it. You have to assign an IP to it. But you can, if your TFTP server is also a DHCP server, then you don't have to auto assign. But you do need to point to. You need to tell it hardware-wise what is that server's IP address. Then it'll go from there.
So
Yeah.
Kind of like an IP phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
You go here.
Ooh. I wonder if you could use this to make like a VoIP kind of. That's a fun call. It even has some of those weird, those weird 72-pin connectors, like on the, like the Edison had and stuff. That's kind of weird, hard.
There's like a SATA port on that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Very cool.
SATA data, but the power is this weird 3-prong thing
Yeah.
that you gotta like build your own little connector, I guess.
Hmm.
Haven't quite figured that out, but I will. The thing that had kept anybody at Akron Makerspace from even using this thing and why it was sitting around was it didn't have a power brick. And it's one of the, well, it's a lot like, what was that one? The Panda board, where it needs 4 amps at 5 volts. So you can't just use USB, but it's 20 watts. But like, if you're a geek like me, you've got 3 of those sitting around because you've been through this problem. These guys are mostly dealing in wood and metal. It's not what they have sitting around their house, Yes, we all have cats. It kind of ends there. So
how do you power that up? Is it just
it's a-
micro USB or?
no, it's a regular barrel jack.
Yeah.
So it's one of these.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Got this one in Dallas for $5.
What's the age on that thing?
This is from 2012.
Okay.
And the chip itself, so the chip is still supported. They still develop new things for it. They've got a couple of new iterations. So this is technically the Hydrogen 6. There's the 7 and 8, and the 8 is more modern. There's a couple of extra features it allows, but I haven't seen any of those devices around. Whereas you can still get this board. It's $200, but I'm borrowing it for freezies. So woo! It is, and as a result, but so when it starts up, you get the, it's sort of, there's still that strange feeling of I'm dealing with this tiny startup setup and trying to get all these variables, but then once it starts, everything is familiar. Everything, normal visuals. It could render YouTube from what I can tell. I'm looking forward to confirming that. It's got H.264 and H.265, I believe.
Hardware decode.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's why it's value. Like I said, it was meant for entertainment systems and for interfaces in industrial sites. So like you could seal this thing up, you'd never have to touch it again. But it means that because of the 2 cards and the ability to upgrade the firmware through the cards or through NFS or I2C, you can just swap the cards out. And that, which saves you the grief of 10 years down the line. Well, we've only hit the 10 years down the line thing. And then 20 years down the line, they still won't get rid of it. You got to do it. It's ready. It's okay. It's just how we get it ready. That's where we're learning. Keep coming back. It's the hands. I'm Simon Whistler, and this is Things I Learned Today. Yes.
Love that.
So, any other questions out in the field?
Sean,
You're all muted.
Everyone.
Yeah, so I didn't catch your name. I'm sorry.
Oh, Dante. Sorry.
Dante, yeah, I know. We've spoken. I've been there. Can you do this more often? You are incredibly engaging.
Sure. Got more to teach. I definitely. Oh, I'm ready. Yeah.
Cool.
We'll put you on the docket for next month if you want to continue.
Yes, absolutely.
And the month after that, and the month after that, he'll just keep doing. He'll keep you employed.
Owe me the hardware, I'll get you a story. I got this. That's what I do.
That's good. Yeah, we'll put you on the, yeah, I'd like to effectively have you guys be the primary leads on getting topics set up and, kind of running the show for the most part, since you're a lot more involved in it than I am these days. Since I've been retired, I haven't done as much lately. And you guys are a lot more in tune with what's going on currently, so I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah, that sucks when you realize all your knowledge is obsolete.
Yeah, I know. Well,
No, but that means I gotta pick your brain, because I still need some of that stuff.
yeah, that's fine.
Oh, hello.
Yeah, is the kitchen still?
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's all right. Yeah, no, that's
You gotta give me a big thanks as well while we're all on screen.
Is that a leather fedora?
What do you want?
Oh, no,
I was like,
oh, sorry, I was wondering, do you have any of the lemon lime?
I don't have one line. Chocolate cream, peanut butter cream, cherry pie.
You got the,
cherry pie.
Yeah,
yes,
you like that?
yeah,
You want some cinnamon on it?
yes, please.
Okay.
I have a raspberry pie.
Oh, God, I got tons of them. Got some in the car. In fact, I just bought one of those TFT screens for them, and now I have to realize what do I need to do? I'm like, oh, yeah. But also, this thing may be able to use it too, so I'm looking forward to kind of getting some comparison about touchscreen with something that's a little more ramped up for the video side. But yeah, I mean, the Raspberry Pi obviously has been this great boon for the Linux community. It gives us a chance to play with things at that tiny level and have them stashed around the house, or sneak one onto the cat. And people
Great for self-hosting stuff too. I got a Pi 4, and I'm thinking about like some Nextcloud stuff or something.
Sorry about
Here
that.
comes the cat again.
Kitty.
Sean?
No, he has a kitty. My kitty's at home.
Sean, what about the new
Bless you.
module Raspberry Pi?
Oh, the new CM. I have not. I've seen them, but I don't have anything to plug one into. It's the only reason I haven't bought one. So since I don't have a way to play with it, I'd have to go in. And I'm gonna wait. I'm between jobs. So after that, that's on the list of things I'd like to play with. Definitely.
What about the Tinker Ashu Tinker 2 is now out?
Yes, I've heard about that. I've still only got the Tinker S, which I like, but I had to make sure I had to put in a special case so I could put a fan to it. But it has an interesting boot up thing where you can either deal with its eMMC or card, but not both. And if you want to upgrade what's on the eMMC, you have to connect it as a dependent device. Like it has to be the child out through USB. Weird.
Yeah, they came out with a 2 and a 2S and has 4 USB 3 ports on it.
However, I did just pick up, I still haven't even opened the box, but I also picked up while I was at it, the new, oh God, I can't remember its name now, and I can see it in my head. The one with the 2 buttons, the little kid one, from the BBC people, the Microbit. I picked up a Microbit 2. I've yet to actually test it out and see what kind of new receptors it has. I'm looking forward to playing with that as well. Oddly, what I've had to learn is how many of my USB wires are only half-assing. Like, oh yeah, it'll run, but it won't deal with the data, or it'll only deal with the data and not the power. Like, really? All right. So been learning that part of my stash. Time to thin the herd. Makes my wife happy. So, well, I guess we've, Sean, do you have anything to teach our world? Not to impose, or just... Nope. Well, thank you very much for letting me present. This has been fun, and I look forward to doing more. Can you tell? I'll talk your ear.
Yeah, that's good. Anything else?
Yeah.
Topic-wise, you want to go through some of the topics?
Like I said, well, I want to have a second round with that once it's fleshed out. The whole thing of either, like I said, the Yggdrasil thing, although I've been doing some extra research with that. And I've kind of wanted to, so the whole thing with FreeRTOS got me thinking about, I'd like to take a couple of different chips and see how they do with FreeRTOS, like what kind of performance do you get? Because I've got enough of these old things sitting around, and some of them are Wi-Fi, and some of them are this or that, and I want to see basically, how well do they do the acronym of 4.2? Like what do they, give me some idea of what I would get and whether it's worth the time. What kind of interrupt can I run it and get interrupt? Can I do those things?
The compute module, somebody's created a desktop cluster for that module.
Wow.
Desktop cluster for what?
To run multiple processors and hats.
Turn the volume up a little bit.
Sorry, everybody's talking.
We got everyone talking in the background here now, so it's getting harder.
In the pouring rain.
Have to get everyone else.
There we go.
Quiet down. Try it again there, Harvey.
The new compute module that has a motherboard and a daughter board.
Yes.
A company's taken advantage of that, and they've made a desktop cluster
Yes.
to use that.
I think I've seen that. Yeah, basically you're making them into blades.
Oh,
It's kind of, yeah. It's pretty cool.
Right, you can either stack it raw or put it in this tall box that sits on your desk.
That's a lot of fun, especially because it means you can start. Ooh.
Yeah. Ooh.
The ooh for me is I'm thinking of it sort of like edge routing stuff that you could dedicate them to dealing with different levels of bandwidth and setting up VLANs, so that you can have like separated, like for like if you're dealing with high security networks, but still wanting to keep things in an observable place. Yeah. Oh, yay! Thank you.
Okay, sure. Want some fresh coffee?
No.
Or just go to your press?
John, I sent you something.
I mean, ginger.
Oh. Put in chat. You open up. I think you opened up.
What's that?
There you go.
Oh, it's the their custard pie, your custard cake. I forget the name on it, but it's yummy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Raggart.
Okay. So, what was this?
Hear that how they're going to restrict Chromium for Linux?
No, what are they doing?
To use the syncing function and others. If you're running Chromium, once they're going to stop supporting it in Chromium, what should be in Chrome, March 15th of this year.
Oh.
That's not Linux specific. That's just in general.
No, it
They've
is.
cut off.
Yeah, it's in general, but Chromium is Chrome's version of
Open
Chrome
source
Linux.
version of Chrome. Yeah. Well, that's also not Linux specific. You can get a Windows build and a Mac build for it too. It's just it's like AOSP, but just for Chrome. It's they've cut off they've cut off their API
Right.
to Chromium. So
Right.
they want everybody just to move to Chrome.
Right.
And it kind of sucks.
Yes.
So everybody should just use Firefox. Except Mozilla's going down the tube.
Oh, is it?
Oh, looks like he agrees with us.
I use Firefox. I'm a Firefox fan, except for the times where I have to use a Chrome engine. What is it?
Would you
V8.
have to?
And then I use Vivaldi, but that's just
Oh,
my
yeah?
preference.
Anyone use?
Ever-
Go?
Trying to think of, you ever use Brave?
I've heard of it and I've seen it and I've played with it a little bit, but I've not used it in any major capacity.
It's supposed to be a little more secure.
Right, privacy centric. Right. Yeah.
Right.
No, it's cool. I get it, but yeah, I'd rather use something that's not Chromium based, right? So, because
I mean, Google.
Firefox
support-
has its own engine.
Yeah.
Right.
And pretty much everything else except Safari uses Chrome's engine now.
How
So,
about Opera?
yeah, that uses Chrome's engine.
Oh, wow.
And Firefox now has their own VPN server.
Yeah, I heard that.
I don't know if they're going to keep that around.
No? You think they, too much cost behind it?
I don't know if I don't know if they're going to keep that around. I wouldn't put anything into that myself.
Yeah.
Have
I
you
wouldn't depend on it. I use Proton VPN for my own purposes, but
What is it? Pro Puppy?
Proton.
Proton. Oh, Proton. Yeah.
So I use Proton Mail. I use Proton VPN. I'm a big fan of their stuff. But I pay for it because, you know, if you don't pay for it, you're the,
Yeah.
well,
Use you for a data mine.
yeah,
Yeah.
your data is being sold.
Yeah.
So
Well, there's.
yeah, but Mozilla's stuff, they're I don't know. I'm not liking some of the directions they're taking as of the last couple of years. It's kind of weird. And they had the what was it, that object storage or whatever that was, that what was that
The Pocket?
Firefox share or something like that, and they had to shut that down.
I don't. Yeah, I didn't use that. I haven't used
Yeah.
Fox much for quite a while. I used to use it exclusively. Then I switched to Opera for a while, and I finally just broke down and used Chrome. Used Google Chrome for almost everything, just because it was more native on the phone and some of the other devices, and the convenience of having a lot of the browser history things across all platforms was useful. And that's the convenience outweighed the lack of security.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And yeah, I use Chrome at work a lot for a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
but I really want to keep Firefox alive, but I think it's going downhill, honestly.
But I use Firefox with no script, and Chrome doesn't really have anything in comparison. And
No,
what's
I
nice
don't think
about
Chrome
that-
will allow that.
What's nice about that is you can see all the sites that, all the redirections that are going for
Yeah.
a single site.
Yeah, it
And you
gets
can
kind of crazy.
choose.
Yeah,
But
but it breaks a lot of stuff too. I've used no script myself in the past. It breaks almost everything anymore.
it takes time looking at what they your choice of letting run, and you have to be careful of what you allow.
Right.
Some
I
sites-
kind of go for a blacklist instead of a whitelist now. I'm using uBlock Origin, which is more of an ad blocker, but I also use some other stuff along with it. And Firefox is pretty good about. I mean, they added this super cookie
privacy.
blocking recently with the latest version, which I really like. So I don't know. I don't know if I really feel the need to go with blocking all JavaScript, because that seems kind of heavy-handed, given that I do some web development myself and I pull in a lot of JavaScript. So I'm
Well, you're a
I'm to
developer.
blame.
I'm primarily a system configurator.
Yeah,
Part of the
but
problem, you break a lot of things if you just do a blanket, shut everything off that's JavaScript, or there are other websites you may be using that ends up getting disabled because of that you may.
Well, that's the reason why I like no script, is because on the fly I can pick and choose.
Oh,
yeah, it'll let you
Get it
save
to work-
settings
get
for
it to
sites
work.
and stuff.
oh,
Yeah,
So it'll pop up, and you basically get like a virus program. It'll let you, or antivirus program will let you make
it doesn't pop up, but if you click on the no script on the toolbar,
Yeah.
it'll show you.
Oh, okay. And then you can opt to let it go, and
Right.
yeah, that's a good idea. Because then you only have to do it once.
And it remembers.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty good. That's good. And it's embedded is getting to be a lot more of a challenge too to keep that secure. That's one of the problems that I know a lot of the guys in the embedded world are fighting with all the time, trying to make sure that they don't have holes in the system, where you have hackers beating on the Ring doorbell was I had a big problem with that initially, and I guess fixed it since then. But any embedded device is going to have a potential risk of having a back door. At that point, you really got to secure your systems at the firewalls, more so than at the device, because you have very little control over the devices anymore.
Yeah, it's
you've
like you
heard
got to
about-
keep it on a separate NAT system,
Yeah,
separate
right.
network.
Yeah.
Have you heard about the Linux specific malware called Kobolus?
No, huh? Kobolus.
That's new to me.
Kobalos.
Kobolus. That's a new one on me.
It's the article says they're attacking supercomputers as well as other
Cobalt.
systems.
That's interesting. It's a Linux hack on the current kernel.
It looks for Linux.
Oh, is it only? It's probably looking for some
Cabalus.
kernel, I would imagine.
It looks for. It's been going after endpoint security software vendors, personal servers, and government supercomputer (HPCs).
Oh, well, maybe that's coming from Russia too. Is that part of the? They have any idea where it's coming from, or is it still?
No, but it's attacking in Asia and Europe too.
Oh, okay. Could
Not just us.
Could be China. It's hard to say. Yeah, you'd really have to do some forensics on the hacks to see what it looks like. But that's going to be an ongoing problem. As time goes on, you're just going to see more and more of this happen. It's going to be hard to safeguard every avenue or every channel that possibly can come in on.
Right.
Especially with new hardware, you get a piece of code that's embedded in something, you can get inside your network and then cause havoc. But we've done that.
Dave Frazier is saying that he likes Thunderbird and SeaMonkey. I don't know why he's going to an email app and compare it, over Mozilla. Firebird.
Mozilla still owns Thunderbird, or they still
Right.
take care of Thunderbird.
Oh,
And SeaMonkey.
I don't know about SeaMonkey.
I've heard of it. I never used it. I forgot somebody else was using it that I was talking to.
And I use Thunderbird. I don't like it. Honestly, I just don't like it.
I've been using Gmail for so long. I'm pretty much committed to it.
Yeah, I've gone back to just pinning my Gmail and my Proton Mail stuff, and yeah, Thunderbird's just too clunky.
Yeah.
Anybody using temporary email accounts?
I have a backup account that I can use, if I want to use it for something I don't want to get too much spam from, or I can, just shut it down at that point. But,
Yeah, I have a I.MX email account that I use for stuff that I think is gonna spam me.
yeah,
So I can just ignore it.
yeah.
There's several temporary accounts that then die after you use them.
Oh, I see. Just like one-time use, or yeah.
Or let's say a week use.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Well, when I ran my own mail servers years ago, we would do that. We just set up a mail account, give it a dummy name and use it for something, then just kill it. And it would just no longer, the server no longer knew who that person was, so it'd get a bounty. And that was convenient. But I haven't run a mail server for probably better part of 20 years now.
It's a pain.
Well,
Oh, it
on
is.
your Linux distribution, do you set up SendMail?
Oh yeah. Mhm. Yeah. You can
I use SendMail on 3 of my servers, and I dislike it. No, it's not SendMail itself I dislike. I just like email.
Yeah.
It's a pain in the butt setting it up and getting it to actually work, and
and keeping
getting everybody to not blacklist you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a big problem. we had people, I forgot what it was, somebody within our account on our machine, somebody on our machine did something, got the whole damn department blacklisted. You couldn't get email in or out. And we had to fight, to get that turned back on again. So it's like,
Right.
after that, it's like, this is more of a pain in the butt than it's worth. And I basically switched everyone over to Gmail or sent them back to the university's email services. And that was, most people switched to Gmail because the reason I had an email server running is the university sucked so bad. It was kind of.
Yeah, my philosophy is let somebody else take care of the email
Yeah. Oh,
if you can.
yeah. I
And
spent way too many hours maintaining email systems. It was.
oh no, it's not SendMail. It's Postfix that I've been using. That's what I've been using. Postfix. It's just getting like administrative emails from my servers. That's what I've been doing.
Yeah, we had send mail and we had, you'd have to upgrade it almost daily. It seemed like there was always a hack that they had to work around. It was patched and patched and patched and finally stabilized after about 5 or 6 years, now 5 or 8 years, finally slowed down on the number of patches. But I'd get a email from the university once in a while. Oh, send mail us a patch on. It's like, yeah, it's so obscure that for somebody to hack that, it has to be an inside job and it has to be done under really extreme conditions. That's not happening here. I'm not worried about it. I service, 20 people, so it's not too concerned. I know the people that are on the system, and those people, really didn't know enough to know how to do a hack, let alone use the system. So
yeah, everybody wants ease of use with they don't care about this their privacy at that time, but they do care once it gets hacked.
They care about what?
They do, all of a sudden they do care about privacy and having more security.
Yeah.
Funny thing, because ease of use is the primary driving force.
Yeah. Well, that's what
they go. Well, I don't care until they have to care.
Well, then you make them do two-step authentication, then they care. Oh, it's too much. I don't want to do that. It's like, well, okay.
Then it's a pain in the butt enough to make them care.
That's right. Then they care. Then they don't.
Right.
Yeah, that's.
Well, that's the thing is convenience is the enemy of security.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Well, Microsoft did that for years, and all of Microsoft hacks were because they didn't want to bother people putting passwords in or forcing a password on you and doing the things that made things more secure, made it less convenient. And
until they came out with NT.
Oh yeah, well NT was pretty secure. They made it worse as they went to like Windows 95 or Windows 2000 from NT, right. And they kept reducing the security because NT was actually written by the guy that wrote Deck, was it? Which one was it? Deck's operating system, and I don't remember if it was RSX or one of them. But anyway, Intel hired them. Not Intel, Microsoft hired them right in. They did a good job, but unfortunately, the convenience factor became more. Laborious. It wasn't as easy to use, but you had to have passwords and they had to be, you could set security levels or set,
now it's hard to,
was.
Now it's hard to find a password. A password manager makes it easier.
It does.
Yes.
But to find one that's cross platforms that you can use, it's not so easy.
Chrome's not as secure, but it will do it. And that's
which
Chrome.
I don't know if I'd want to use my browser as a password manager.
Yeah, it's not great, but it's.
I use LastPass, and even that I find kind of distasteful because it's not open source.
Oh.
But then you have things like Bitwarden and 1Password that you can host yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But do I really want to do that? I mean,
yeah, a lot of
so
work.
I stick with the LastPass. I pay $24 a year.
It's not bad. Yeah.
And that's good enough for me. And it is cross-platform, and I can use it on my Android device, my iOS device, my Windows device, my Linux device. There are browser plugins for all the browsers, so it's just easy for me.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the oldest ones out there.
And the password generation is really good.
Oh.
I really like that you can change the password generation options and you know, make it as difficult as the server will allow you to, and you don't have to remember.
Yeah, that's one reason that I do use Chrome primarily because of that too, because a lot of my passwords were stored within Chrome, and like when I loaded DuckDuckGo because that was being advertised as being secure and get rid of the ads, and so I put that on there, and of course it took priority. So when you clicked on a web address, it would take you to that browser, and then all my passwords are over on Chrome. Because I have to go look up my password then and go either cut and paste it in, or it's like, I just took it off.
You mean DuckDuckGo doesn't work real nice with Chrome?
No, there's two competing browsers effectively.
On mobile, DuckDuckGo acts as a browser. Yeah.
It is your browser.
Oh,
Yeah.
because
I
DuckDuckGo is
use Firefox on mobile, but that has
DuckDuckGo is a search engine
it is.
competing against Google.
Yeah. But it's a browser as well.
It is?
Yeah, they have a browser, and that makes it
So
Haven't
yeah,
come-
on mobile you can install the DuckDuckGo app, and it acts as a browser as well as a
Okay.
search, but it doesn't allow you plugins like Chrome or Firefox.
right.
So you can't use your password manager with it, which kind of sucks. So
Yeah,
that's why I don't use it on mobile,
yeah, I don't.
but I do use it on the desktop
Yeah,
on my Linux desktop.
as
I've always added it to my browsers as just the search engine.
Yeah.
okay, yeah, that's good. Yeah, I mean, search engines go. I'm not too concerned about Chrome. I mean, yeah, it grabs your data. I mean, anything you search for, you get ads immediately for whatever things you look at. It's really apparent that it's very actively looking at what you're searching for. Search for a video camera and you get ads for video cameras immediately.
Right. Through
Good thing in a lot of ways.
through NoScript, I'm able to see how now on some websites they're using Google as the authenticator.
Using Google what?
They use Google, going to google.com.
Yeah.
For authentication.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, you can do that. I opt not to do that. I always put in a different password for each device.
You don't have a choice on some sites, and it wasn't displayed to me unless only because of NoScript. That until I finally temporarily allowed it, I couldn't log in.
Oh, that's strange.
Really?
Yes.
I haven't run into that. That's an interesting website that would force you only to use the Google. I wouldn't use it. So I wouldn't do it because I'd be afraid that they're using your account.
Right.
I wonder if they're doing it for bot prevention as a sort of yeah.
Well, it's your
Huh.
website developer as to his choice of how he wants to have it authenticated.
Right.
So apparently it's easier for him to let Google do the authentication for his website.
Yeah.
At least they're making it that way.
Yeah, well, the way I look at it is I don't need to go there that much. That's not something I would do. Now they even let you use like Facebook, or usually get an option Facebook or Gmail, or create a user account and password. And I always create a user account and password.
Right.
And let the password manager manage the password to it, because I don't want to enter my password for Gmail or Google, into somebody else's web engine, because I don't know what
Right.
they're skimming off of that. Even though I have two-step authentication, it's still, still not a good idea.
Rick, you've gone to Infogard, right?
No, InfoGuard.
Yeah, in Cleveland.
No, I don't think so. What's
I thought
that?
I saw you one time at one of their meetings,
Oh,
quarterly meeting.
up off of Rockside Road?
Yeah,
Yeah, oh, that's been
no, not Rockside. They're all, in the fall, they allow you to come to the FBI office on Lakeland.
Oh, no, I never been to that.
Oh, okay. The reason why I
That would be
brought it up is because Infragard, you, part of your membership and being part of them, because it's free anyways, you
Oh,
just have to pass a security background check,
oh, yeah,
because it's part of FBI's technical outreach for their digital forensics group.
there were a couple other guys in the group that were very heavy into security and belonged to several security groups. One meeting I did go to up at Rockside, I don't remember the name of the group, but there were 2 or 3 guys from Linux group at that time that were going there. And, I think I know one guy that still probably belongs to it, but I've lost track of most of the other.
I've been a member since 2006.
Oh, okay, good. Well, you probably were one of the ones up there. Did you go up to the Rockside?
Yeah, well, they sometimes have a meeting there.
Yeah, and maybe that's what it was. But
One
yeah,
of the reasons why I brought it up is they have, the specifications. You have to have at least 13 characters and, special character, number, letters, so on and so
Yeah.
forth. But to go to what's really great is they send you stuff from the FBI. So like when Solar Winds hit, I got a lot of information on what was going on.
I see.
Oh, very
But-
cool.
Yeah,
Is that,
and one of the things is you cannot use the same password, of course,
yeah, right.
unlike a lot of places, and they retain 23 login history.
Yeah,
So you cannot reuse the
password.
password from 23 times before.
Yeah, that's really annoying, but with password automatic generation, it's not a big deal. You have to put a password.
Right.
I haven't started using it. I always create a new password no matter what it is.
Yeah, and they make sure that they probably don't let some X number of characters be the same or in the same sequence, or some of them have some heuristics that prevent you from making minor alterations to the password, like single digit changes or punctuation.
Yeah,
I wish we could do that at work. I know some people that just have the same password and just iterate every time, like 6, 7, 8, at the end.
Yeah.
my wife, her work email just recently stopped her from being able to do exactly what you said, Sean.
Well, after you did that, and they still do that. In fact, they send you an email saying your password's about to expire, and then you set it. Sometimes it's already expired by the time you get the email because they don't look at it that often.
I had to help her to get around it. I told her to take the 4 last characters and
Yeah.
put it in the front, and it worked.
Yeah, they just do a rotation, rotate by 4.
Oh yeah,
So you helped her hack the system.
Yeah.
you got it.
Yeah. Well, I had to do the same thing. I think you kept track of 5 or 6 passwords, and I'd rotate through them because I didn't use a password. It was only, I think the other problem was it was 8 characters, and if you did more than 8 characters, it lopped off either the last ones or the first ones. It would rotate through, and if you didn't realize that, you typed like a 5 character, a 15 character password. It lopped off one part of it. If you did that through a different portal, it wouldn't lop off. It would fail, because it would try to catch passwords. Because between 2 different systems, their rule sets were different.
Hey Zeke, I think your mic is hot.
So they can move the way they were born to.
I can use that.
Campers, cruisers, 360 fit.
There we go.
Nice thing.
Thanks.
I sent you a text about a comparison article between Pop! OS and Ubuntu. You interested?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, I use Pop! OS on my personal laptop,
Right.
and it's a derivative of Ubuntu. So, and I've played with that.
Did you but you got the laptop from the same maker.
System 76, yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I just left it on there. I was thinking that, oh, I would just check out Pop! OS and see how it is, and then if I didn't like it, I just put something else on there in a couple weeks. I ended up really liking it. So it's quite a
And it
nice
takes
OS.
stuff from Ubuntu, right?
Yeah, it's a derivative of Ubuntu, yeah.
Pretty good. So what's going on with Red Hat getting rid of was it
Oh no, it's CentOS.
Yeah.
It's CentOS Stream. Yeah.
So was that being supported directly by Red Hat?
No, right?
Red Hat acquired CentOS.
Right.
They started, well, they pretty much own CentOS.
Yeah.
So CentOS 7 is still being supported from what I heard, but
Yeah,
CentOS
still-
8 is only going to be supported for a time, and then everything is moving to CentOS Stream, which is like the next version of RHEL,
Oh.
the next point release of RHEL anyway.
But now CentOS 7 is going to be supported until 2024.
Right. But CentOS 8 is only going to be supported till what, like middle of the year? I don't remember.
But the co-founder of CentOS is
he's
coming
creating a
out
new one.
with one called Rocky Linux.
Rocky Linux, yeah. It's like going to be a new version of RHEL or CentOS.
Right.
It's pretty much going to be RHEL, like a binary compatible version of RHEL.
No, they didn't
just
say
like
anything about
CentOS.
binary compatibility. The only one that showed binary compatibility with 8 was Alma Linux, which is from Cloud.
I thought Scientific Linux was too.
Huh?
I thought Scientific Linux was binary compatible too.
I haven't seen anything stating that. The only one that I saw was ALMA Linux.
Yeah, Alma. Yeah, right.
From Cloud, the Cloud Linux company. They got they Cloud Linux has said that they're going to put $1 million in support annually for Alma.
That's good.
And that's
whereas the co-founder for CentOS, he's gotten $4 million from the money people for all of his companies. So that who knows, it could be $1 million even for Rocky.
So
excuse me.
Is it basically a fork of Cent 8?
It's a fork of RHEL.
Oh, fork of RHEL. Okay.
It's like RHEL with all the stuff removed that makes it Red Hat.
Oh, I see.
An article that I got says that it only takes 15 minutes for you to change over to Alma.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I heard the script is pretty simple and easy to use, but
I'll have to check that out. Yeah, I haven't. I'm still running Ubuntu on a laptop and desktop at home, but
well,
I'm not much into
running, Red Hat.
What's that?
Enterprise. Are you running Red Hat or Fedora?
No, I'm running Ubuntu. I'm just.
Sean is running Pop! OS.
Yeah.
On my personal laptop, that's on my servers I run Ubuntu.
Yeah.
At this
Listen,
job
sir.
that I might be going to, it is all real.
Oh, is it? Good.
So it's going to be red hat all the way
Oh,
at that point.
Um,
Um, which-
in the article I saw about CentOS, I got the impression that IBM was pushing to drop CentOS.
From what Scott
I was wondering how much influence IBM would have on Red Hat when they acquired them. I'm afraid of that.
yeah, well, Scott seemed to think that they were being pretty much left alone, but that was last time I talked to him, which was,
It's been a while since he's been to one of these.
yeah, I've talked to him probably a month ago, but just chatted online. But he's been pretty busy with 2 kids and wife and work. But I've been trying to get him
He
out.
wasn't married last time that I
Well,
understood.
he's not married technically. He's just
Yes,
significant other.
technically.
But when you have 2 kids and you live in the same house, it's effectively the same thing. I mean,
Oh,
Right.
actually, yes.
yeah. And it's a lot of the things that he's relegated to doing is effectively husband mode. So I think he's pretty
I
much.
had a friend that had lived with his girlfriend for 25 years, no kids,
Yeah,
and she threw him out of the house with his stuff after 25 years.
that can happen even if you're married. So it's just a little.
No, but it costs you more because you're in a divorce.
Yeah. Oh, it does. I've had friends. Actually, one of my friends after the second kid, and then after that kid was, I don't know, maybe like 5 years old, they decided to get married for whatever reason. But they'd been together for like 20 some years, so it was kind of like, I don't know, maybe it was just for things like if you have to go to the hospital with the kid or pick the kid up from school, and there's some logistics problems if you're not legally, the father. Well, I guess it'd be legally the father, but being married makes some of that stuff simpler. Some of the
Simplifies that, yeah.
makes the paperwork get a little simpler. Well, I guess we're gonna pack up here because they close
Okay.
in minutes, and you guys can continue on, leave the session open if you want. I'm just gonna close this session, my session here, so you can continue on, and whenever you guys wind down, last
Rick?
one out, turn the lights off.
Rick,
Yeah,
in the chat session, remember at the end
yeah,
that I mentioned about Twister OS?
oh, okay, yeah. I was-
Take a look at the chat. I also put the URL in there. They include a lot of things, such as Box 86 that allows you to run x86 software on an ARM processor.
Oh, that's cool.
Comes with a very unique utility called PyKiss
Yeah,
that allows you to even do some very detailed configurations.
okay,
And it also comes with Kobe pre-installed, as well as games. What was it? RetroPie pre-installed.
okay. Oh, yeah, I see. I think that I am recording this session, so hopefully that stays with the recorded session. I think it does. So this should be able to be replayed at a later time if we need to.
Well, I tried to use the chat to provide some of the stuff I keep coming across.
Yeah, no, that's
Can you
great.
can you
Security.
paste the link back in there?
Pardon?
Can you put the link back in there? I can't find it.
Oh, you can't?
Uh,
It's near the top.
Near the top of the chat session.
Yeah.
There's the
There it is.
projects.
All it is twisteros.com.
Scrappy.
It's that simple.
Yeah, I don't see Twister yet. Oh, there it is. Twister. Yeah, twisteros.com. Okay. Yeah, that'll be good. So that's good to know.
It's built on Raspberry Pi OS, as far as I understand, the latest.
Oh, I found it.
It's built on Raspberry Pi OS.
Yep.
Raspbian.
Raspbian.
Yeah. Okay. And that works on any platform then? It's not,
Yeah, because it's
ARM.
32-bit.
yeah, it's not ARM based. Okay.
It's not 64.
Okay. Oh, it's 32 based,
Interesting.
32 bit.
Right, 32 base.
Oh, okay.
So it'll even work on the Raspberry Pi 2,
Yeah.
and 3s.
Mhm. Yeah, it should work on almost anything, even old hardware from way back. So
Yeah.
all right. Yeah, that's something I'll take a look at. Yeah, actually, Ubuntu is what I think they based Raspbian on anyway, wasn't it?
Really?
I thought that was where it was derived from.
Thought it was taken from Debian.
Oh, was it? Well, yeah, but it isn't Ubuntu taken from Debian also, or am I mis-
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess yeah, I'm not sure at what place they forked it, but yeah.
Rick, have you heard from JJ at all?
No, I was wondering about that. I have tried to get a hold of him, way while back when he first kind of disappeared. I tried emailing, texting, no response on any media that I tried. I don't know what happened to him. I mean, I knew
I've sent him stuff and he hasn't responded like he used to.
I hate to say it, but I have not checked the obits. I didn't really want to, but
What about Ken?
Ken, he kind of hasn't been around for a while either. I can give him a call. He usually will respond. And I think he was out of the group for about a couple of years after his mom passed away. I think he was kind of recovering from that, and his business was taking a lot of his time. I think he either did something with his business. I don't know if he sold part of it off or he was restructuring it after his mom passed away. But he came back a couple of times, but then we haven't seen him. Actually, he had a long chat with Scott McCarty. He hasn't been back.
Oh, yeah?
That was because they were kind of at opposite ends of the
Oh, yeah.
political or not political spectrum, but operating system spectrum. One, so they were arguing points back and forth, and I thought they left on good terms, but Scott's
He didn't want to come as long as Scott McCarthy was coming.
yeah, well, Scott hardly ever comes, but he could.
He doesn't know that.
No, he doesn't, but maybe he didn't want to take. I mean, he's not afraid of them, I'm sure. I mean, they just come from different ends of the spectrum as far as developing software for industry. And like I was telling Ken, it's like what you do is so very specialized. Very few people can do what you do, and Red Hat is basically the software for the masses to do what you are doing, that the other people don't have the capability. So it's a different methodology of getting to the same point. Yeah, obviously what he's doing is way more cost effective, but not that many people have the ability to do that level of integration, hardware level and software level. So
Have you checked his website where he did his distribution for the Raspberry Pi?
I haven't looked at it lately. Have you been up on the site?
No.
Probably look at it real quick. I'm trying to see, where am I here? Let me get off of full view. Let me stop the recording here so this thing gets a chance to stop cloud recording.